Hello, my name is Doug Leisure. I wanted to record this video today to show you how in my donation and expenses software, how you can enter expenses related to employee salaries. And I'm referring to more than just pathetically simple salaries where you just simply write out a check for the amount that you decided to pay them. I'm talking about the part where you also are withholding the federal tax and the FICA tax and then paying that quarterly. So it gets a little more complicated. So let's go ahead and go through through an example of that. Then I'll show you what I'm designing and how you can replicate a similar thing in your environment if you have this need. So the first thing I want to say is within my software, I think you want to create or add one more worksheet tab where you can put the salary information there. And let's take a look at an example of that. So I'm going to suggest that one of the things you want to do is go ahead and list the various rates. So we're going to do a simple example where we're paying the pastor twice a month and the secretary twice a month. Okay, and we've agreed that that the pastor will get 4,000 twice a month, and the secretary will get 2,000 twice a month. Okay, this is a rate, and what we need to find out related to that is for the pastor, what tax rate will he or she be using, and for the secretary, he or she, what is the tax rate for the secretary as well. In this example, we looked at the W4 and determined that the correct rate for the pastor would be 22% and for the secretary 12%. The other thing we talked about is the FICA tax. Now the FICA tax gets a little interesting and a little complex in the sense that you have the Social Security portion of it as well as the Medicare portion. Not only do you have the Social Security Medicare portion, but you also have a portion that you withhold on for the employee, but as the employer, you also have to pay the same Social Security and Medicare taxes. So basically, the employee is paying half, the employer is paying half. And so the current rates for the Social Security portion, 6.2 for the employer and the employee, and the Medicare 1.45. So that's not the total. That's just the portion for the employee, and the portion same amount, same rate for the employer. Okay, so again, what I'm suggesting is that we list those and put them on the sheet so that we can reference them when we start doing our mathematics. The next thing I'm going to suggest is that we create a place where we can enter the information that we need for the pastor, for the secretary, and I've done it in a way that I have some extra room here for a couple more employees as we move forward in time. So when we are going to be doing this twice a month, so during each pay period, we're going to want to put in some information, and that would be when you're ready to do it, what is the check number that you're going to use when you write out the check for the pastor, and then the secretary, what is the date that you're doing the check, and then what is the gross pay, so for each of them. And I've highlighted these in yellows just so you know that this is something each time we do the salary for pastor and secretary, we'll have to fill these in. Now presumably the pay is not going to change unless you give them a raise partway through the year, so that's why that's why it's highlighted in yellow, because you might periodically, like once a year, have to change that amount. Okay, so this is some information that we need, and this part of it will be changing, or could change from pay period to pay period. Definitely the check number and the date will change every time. The next thing is we would want to then go ahead and calculate for each person what is the federal tax. So it's just very simply their gross pay times the tax rate for the pastor, and then this is the gross pay times the tax rate for the secretary. Simple cell formulas, but please take a look at what I'm doing here. We don't want to have to deal with the portions of a penny. If you just do the mathematics, you might end up with dollars and cents and actually portions of a penny. So I'm going to go ahead and use the round function so that we can force it down to the penny and round it to the penny. So that's I think a good thing to do, and we'll do that for all of our formulas. Okay, now we have the federal tax. Let's go ahead and calculate the Social Security portion of FICA. All right, and so in a very similar way, we'll just take the gross pay times the FICA percent and the gross pay times the Medicare percent. So this will give us then the amount that FICA that we're withholding from the employee, and this is the federal tax we are withholding. So if we take the gross pay and subtract off what we are withholding, the federal tax and the FICA tax, this becomes then the net pay, or what we write on the check. So the check will actually be filled out when we write the check. We'll write it for $2,814, not the $4,000. Okay, similar thing for the secretary. The pay rate is $2,000, but the check will be written out for $1,607. Okay, so we can see that fairly clearly then what we're going to do. Each pay, and we also see then the net. Now, since we are going to need to enter our salary information over into the expenses tab, the next thing I'm going to do is to replicate then, or to create the information we need for each of these yellow cells, so that we can do a simple copy and paste of that information rather than going through one row at a time and typing it in. So that's what we're doing down here in the next portion. Okay, so this part down here is then going to be the information we need for the pastor salary, and then this will be for the secretary salary. And this part here is just replicating the header from the expenses tab, so we know what goes in each column. All right, so we're gonna pay it out of the checking account, and I'm just using a cell formula here to point back to whatever check number is used here. So that as you change it here, it'll flow and fill in down here. Same thing on the date. These cell formulas are just simply pointing back to the date from the pastor salary once you filled in. Okay, and now we want to fill in the category that we use for our employee salaries, and in both cases we use the category employees. The subcategory, then, we have a variety of things. We have the pastor salary, we have the federal withholding, we have the FICA Social Security portion, and FICA Medicare portion. So here's the interesting thing, is we are going to create the check amount for the pay at the full gross amount, the $4,000, and then we're going to enter the federal FICA as negative numbers. Okay, this is the part that might seem a little weird when you first hear about it, but I'll show you later how this makes sense. And so So what we're going to basically do then is write the check out for 2,814, and it's made up of this, the 4,000 gross pay minus the amounts that are being withheld. Okay, and then that totals the 2,814, just what we're saying over here. So we're gonna drop this in the comment, and that also then will tell us, and when we write the check, we're writing the check for the net, the 2,814. Okay, again, so we're just doing the simple math here to say, go grab the gross pay, grab the the federal withholding tax, grab the FICA Social Security, FICA Medicare, but do these ones as a negative amount from whatever you calculated up here. All right, so let's go ahead and copy that over. Now I'm going. Let's see. Take a look at our report. We have I have some sample data for the employees already in the earlier months. So let's throw this in July. I just want you to be able to see it standalone. So we'll put it in a month where there's no other data, so that you can kind of see how that's working. So we'll put it in for our sample today. We'll put it in July. All right. So these then are going. Oh, sorry, we did this for the pastor. We'll do the same thing then for the secretary. Again, this is just a pointer back to the check number, the date, the gross amount, and that'll go as a subcategory of secretary salary, and then we'll share the federal withholding, FICA, Social Security, and Medicare. But again, these are just simply whatever we calculated up here, just taking the negative of that. All right, so let's go ahead and drop those in. So these are the things we're going to have to copy and paste, not the header, just the things with the check number and the dates. So we'll copy that, throw it at the bottom of our expenses, and we're going to paste values. So it comes over as a value, which is the same way as if you were just typing the stuff in manually. All right, so we see the gross amount, and then from a payment perspective, this is going as a negative payment because that money is really still in the bank. If you want to think about it, it's still in the checking account. We didn't remove it yet. We will remove it from the checking account when we do our quarterly tax payment to the government. But for right now, it's still in there. So we're doing it as a negative payment. And then we can see over here, this is the net pay. So when we write the check, we'll actually write the check to the pastor for 2,814. Let's do the same thing for the secretary. Grab this, copy it, come back here and paste values at the bottom. All right, let's go ahead and refresh our expense report so we can take a quick look at that. And again, we did it in July. So we come down here, and here we are. For the employees, we have the salary of $6,000, but then we have the negative payment of everything that we withheld, $1,579. All right, and so this was the effect on our balance in the checking account, because this money really wasn't paid out. Okay, and we can see that that 4,421 is really sorry. Sorry, it's our 6,000 minus minus these this with amount withheld, the 1579 withheld. 1579 withheld. Okay. All right, let's take a look now. And that's that same 4421, the net. Okay, let's take a look now at the next part of it, where we want to go ahead and calculate for each of our quarters how much do we need to send in to the federal government based on what has been withheld from the employee, but also calculate the employer portion of the FICA, Social Security, and the FICA Medicare. So let's take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to just scroll down here a little bit further, and what I created then was another little portion here, and I'm just using very simple cell formulas where we go back into the expenses tab, and we pull off the information for the pastor salary, the secretary salary, for the withholding, for the FICA and Medicare, and so all of this is the the pastor and the secretary portion of all of this. Okay. So let's take a look at it. Now I did it for each of the quarters, the cell formula, and so for the earlier periods we do have some data from the sample that we were doing earlier, but we're going to focus on quarter 3 because that matches what we were showing you up here. Okay, so what we're doing is just I guess first of all, when you create this, I'm putting in the beginning date and the ending date for each of the quarters. All right, so that will give me, when I go back to my expenses tab and I'm looking down through this collection of data, and there will be a lot of data in here, we will be able to use the beginning and ending dates as a way to say only look at this data that is greater than equal to July 1st, less than equal to September 30, and just grab that data first, and then within that, please find me the pastor salary, please find me the secretary salary. So let's take a look at that cell formula. So we're summing the payment column from our expenses tab, where the date is greater than equal to this, so July 1st, and the date is less than or equal to the September 30, and where the subcategory is pastor's salary. Okay, so our sum if S formula, greater than equal to this date, less than equal to that date, and where the subcategory equals pastor salary. So the reason I set it up this way is that makes it then easy for me to copy this down. The same formula now works for the secretary. The same formula now works for the federal withholding, almost. Remember how we did the withholding amounts as negative numbers? So we're going to reverse the sign, or get the negative of that value. So I mean, I could have brought it over as a negative number. It would have worked, but I think when you're just looking down through this and reading it, which is what this is intended to be, is a visual of what of how much we withheld, and then how much we as the employer have to pay. It just looks better to have it as positive numbers. So I just reversed it here. Okay, so we just reversed reversed it for the federal withholding, the FICA, and the Medicare FICA. Okay, so now we need to say, and in addition to this amount, what did we, the employer, what do we have to pay for the employees for the FICA, Social Security, FICA, Medicare. So this is just a real simple cell formula where we add up the two salaries and then we multiply it by, remember up here, our FICA percent and our Medicare percent. Okay, so this now is the employer portion of the FICA Social Security, and this is the FICA Medicare, the employer portion of it, based on the sum of the two salaries. And this is the gross salary. Okay, so this then becomes the information by quarter for what we're doing related to the salaries. Now let's take a look at one more thing, and that is our intent for creating this is so that we can fill in the form 941, our quarterly federal tax payment. Okay, so within that we have our various rows down here where we fill in the number of employees, where we fill in the total wages, where we fill in the federal tax withheld, and then it's asking for the wages for Social Security. That's the FICA Social Security, and you multiply that to get the this is a wage, this is the FICA Social Security amount, and then we do a similar thing for the Medicare portion. What are the wages? What is the Medicare tax amount? And down here we add all of that together and get our FICA total, and then down here we add all of the taxes. So it's our federal tax withheld plus the FICA. And again, this is both the employer and the employee is what you're calculating here, and that's why the numbers here don't quite match, because it's really both sides of it, employer employee. So all right, let's take a look at that then. So what this is the visual thing where we can see what we're doing, and then over here I created this little thing to show us and to provide for us the numbers that we're going to fill in on that form 941. All right, so these are the things we're filling in. Row 1, the number of employees. Row 2, the wages, total wages. Row 3, the federal tax that we withheld. Row 5, the Social Security. So it wants to know the the wage that we're using for the Social Security, Medicare, or Social Security, and also then the wage for the Medicare tax. Okay, and then here we are calculating that amount, which is what we withheld here and here. So it's both portions of it. So that's what we're doing, both sides of the FICA, employer and employee. So that's the rate, and that, so you see how basically for each quarter we actually have two columns to fill in it. So I just spaced it out a little bit more to match the form, because when you're filling it in down here, this part of it, there's two columns, so that's why I did it that way. All right, so this is just the sum of our employees, and then we use the same number here and here. This is a simple formula to come back and find from this form what is the amount of the federal tax that was withheld for both employees. Okay, wages. The tax amount is this, the employee side plus the employer side, And then for the Medicare, it's the same thing. This, the employee side, plus this, the employer side. And then this is our total FICA tax, so just a simple sum of those two things. And this is our total tax. So the FICA plus the federal tax withheld. So the 2038, that's just that formula there. So pretty simple. But this then is designed to help us then fill in the form each quarter. All right, once we have that information, we can fill in the form. Now the next part of it is kind of like the final part, is to create then a check that we're going to use to write then when we do our quarterly payment, and then the information then that we're going to paste back into our expenses for that check. So one more part of this, and what I did in this case was to go ahead and put all 4 rows in here for each quarter. So you can see this would calculate based on what's showing up in quarter 1. This would calculate our payment for our quarterly payment to the federal government for quarter 1, for quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. And so you would just take these one row at a time at the end of each quarter. All right, so let's do the one for take a look at the one then for quarter 3, which is where we're at here in our example. And so the question is going to be just like we set up here. Tell me the check number and tell me the date that you're going to do that, write the check for that quarterly tax payment. All right, so that's why they're in yellow, because you have to fill these in. And then the category is going to be employee. This subcategory is going to be our quarterly federal tax. And then in the comment, we'll drop in the word quarter 3. So that allows our subcategory to be the same all quarters, but then the comment will tell us then which quarter it was. And then all we have to do here is to pick up from our little form over here the total tax. Okay, so that means we can come back and take this row. Then when we actually write out the check for our quarterly tax payment, copy that, come over to our expenses and drop that in here. Again, paste values. All right, let's go ahead and refresh the expense report and take a look at July. Okay, so we have our pastor salary, our secretary salary. We have the monies that were withheld, and then at the end of the so it was at the end of the quarter. So the check was actually written in October. I know you might have wanted to have backdated it so that it showed up in the same quarter, but basically based on the timing, you're gonna write it typically the first week in the next quarter. So we have to take a look at the totals here to see how this is working. So remember, it isn't just simply the amount that we withheld, the 1,579, because it was what we withheld plus the church, the employer, had to also pay their share of the, or not their share of, but they also had to pay this same amount as the employer FICA. So that's why the number is a little bit higher. And if we come back to our salary, we should be able to see that the result is going to be 6,459. That is our employee amount that we paid, and we'll see that here. So we paid their salary. This was withheld, but we sent it in, and then we paid this amount as our employer portion, and that total sorry, this was withheld and sent in on their behalf. We the employer did not pay this. We just simply withheld it and paid it on their behalf to the federal government. So our portion of what we actually paid from a salary perspective was this salary plus the employer portion of the FICA. And that's how you get the $6,459. Okay? Again, this was withheld and then sent in at the end of the quarter on behalf of the secretary and the pastor. So the employer did not have to pay that. I mean, yes, we paid it to the government, but we withheld it so we can turn around and send it in on their behalf. All right. So our employee expense, or what it cost us to have the employees, what we paid them, the gross amount, plus our portion of the FICA tax, and that's the 6,459, and that's what we're seeing over here on the report. When we add these two together, 6,459. Okay, so hopefully you see how it all ties together. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about is just the idea that what I'm showing you here can easily be replicated by you. If you have more employees, then we just do the tax rate for them, their federal tax rate, fill in another row of information for them, fill in another combination of all of these rows down here for the next employee, and the bottom part of it, it really doesn't care. The bottom part doesn't matter how many employees you have. It's just summing up over here how many different items it finds here, so that it'll count the number of employees in here. But this bottom part is really generic in the sense that it'll work for 2 employees. It'll work for 6 employees. The bottom part. The top part here, you would have to have one set of these for each employee. So I hope that makes sense. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is, in many ways, this is a pretty simple salary example. What I mean by that is it's possible to get into a lot more complication when it comes to salary related expenses, withholding. It can be extremely complicated. So in our example, we had a gross pay, but the W4, sorry, the tax tables, when you look at them, can be quite complicated depending on whether you're filing single head of household or married, filing joint. That has an impact on your tax rate. And then you might have extra withholding. You might have some other things going on related to the number of dependents. So it can be a little complicated. In addition to that, we then have to also start thinking about, are we doing like a 401k or other things like maybe health insurance premiums or other things that might actually reduce our tax liability. All I mean by that is whatever we put into the 401k, we're not going to calculate our federal tax on that. So we have to remove that before we calculate taxes. So this idea of the pre-tax adjustments to your gross amount. before you even start calculating your tax rates. So you might have to handle that. In addition, we also have the concept of a state tax and possibly a local tax, and there may be other things that would be post-tax adjustments. That is, other things that we need to reduce their salary by those other amounts. So I'm just trying to say that it can be pretty complicated, and if you're doing all of those things, the 401k, if you have your health insurance, if there are other pre-tax deductions, and then you have to calculate your local tax, your state tax. So yeah, and there may be other things like dental plans or other things that you might be deducting from the pay. So there's just a lot of things that could be going on here. If your particular situation is that complicated, you're probably going to be farther ahead to go negotiate with one of the many services that would be happy to handle all of your payroll on your behalf, cut the check to your employees, and handle handle all of the taxes for you. So it might be well worth it if you have all of those complications. If yours is pretty simple along the lines of what I'm showing here, well, then it can easily be done here, and I think this is a pretty good example of that. Okay, well, I hope that that helped as far as looking at how you can design something for your salary and do it in a way that it makes it really easy to fill in the information on the payment side of this, the expense side of it. All right, that's what I wanted to cover today, and I will look forward to working with you in a different video. Thanks.